Long before electric heaters, thermostats, or modern insulation, winter was not an inconvenience. It was honestly a death sentence waiting to happen. Cold killed soldiers in their sleep, froze families inside their own homes, and ended entire campaigns before the enemy ever fired a shot. For most of human history, staying warm was not about comfort. It was about survival. And, when fuel was scarce, smoke was dangerous, and fire itself could become a liability, people had to find ways to stretch heat farther than seemed possible. That is where one of the most overlooked survival tools in history comes in: the clay pot heater. Silent, efficient, low fuel, and, brutally effective. Before we go any further, if you value real survival knowledge pulled straight from history, take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who respects practical skills, leave a comment to support the channel, and subscribe to Warfront Survival. Every episode here is built to preserve techniques that kept people alive when technology failed. Now, let's get into it. Why ancient people understood heat better than we do today. Modern heating relies on constant fuel input and fragile systems. Ancient people could not afford that weakness. What they understood, often through hard experience, was thermal mass. Clay, stone and earth absorb heat slowly and release it even more slowly. Air heats quickly and, loses warmth just as fast. Metal radiates heat aggressively but cools almost immediately once the flame is gone. Clay sits in the middle, holding energy long after the fire dies. This principle shaped everything from Roman bathhouses to medieval bread ovens, and, it is the foundation of the clay pot heater. How the clay pot heater actually works. At its core, the clay pot heater is not producing more heat. It's managing heat more intelligently. A small flame, whether from a candle, oil lamp, or charcoal disc, burns beneath or inside a thick clay vessel. As the flame burns, hot air rises into the cavity of the pot and heats the clay walls. Those walls absorb the energy and store it. Once heated, the pot radiates warmth evenly into the surrounding space for hours. Instead of sharp bursts of heat followed by rapid cooling, you get slow, steady radiation that stabilizes room temperature. Why a tiny flame could heat an entire room. Historical records from Europe, the Middle East and East Asia describe rooms warmed overnight by a single candle or a handful of charcoal. That sounds impossible until you understand the system. The clay pot removes waste. No open flames bleeding heat into drafts. No sparks. No constant tending. The energy stays where it is useful. Over time, walls, floors, furniture, and even clothing absorb that heat and become, secondary thermal storage. This creates a stable microclimate that actually feels warmer than the thermometer would suggest. How layered clay pots increased efficiency even further. Resourceful households did not stop with just a single pot. Nested designs became pretty common wherever clay was available. A smaller pot would house the flame, while a larger outer pot captured and spread the heat. The space between them was filled with sand, ash, or even fine gravel. This buffer prevented cracking, slowed heat loss, and, well, extended radiation time. Some designs suspended the inner pot with metal rods, while others drilled small air holes to regulate airflow. Every variation served one purpose: maximum warmth from minimum fuel. Why this heater produced safer heat than open fires? Open fires create uneven heating, smoke build-up, and constant risk. The clay pot heater reduced all three. Because combustion happened in a controlled space, smoke was minimized. Radiant heat replaced sparks and embers. The warmth was gentle, not drying or aggressive. Workshops, winter shelters and family rooms benefited equally. In cramped or concealed environments, especially during wartime blackouts, this quiet heat source was, just invaluable. How different cultures adapted the same principle is honestly quite fascinating. Medieval Europeans used candles and oil lamps. Middle Eastern households favoured charcoal and animal fat. East Asian variations incorporated ceramic braziers and clay enclosures tied into floor heating systems. The materials changed, but the physics stayed the same. Everywhere, fuel was precious, and winter was unforgiving. The clay pot heater appeared. That alone should tell you something about its effectiveness. How this method still applies today. You do not need ancient tools to use ancient knowledge. Any thick terracotta or fire-resistant ceramic pot works. A stable metal stand, a small controlled flame, and proper ventilation are essential. Charcoal and oil produce carbon monoxide, so airflow is not optional. Now, this isn't meant to replace your modern heating, but rather it's a backup that actually works when the power goes out, when fuel is being rationed, or if you find yourself living off-grid. For cabins, workshops, tents, or even emergency shelters, it stays, brutally efficient. Here's what the clay pot heater really teaches every survivalist. It's not about nostalgia. No, it's about truly understanding energy. You see, ancient people never wasted heat, simply because they couldn't afford to. They designed systems that multiplied effort instead of consuming resources. The clay pot heater is proof that simplicity, when paired with understanding, outperforms complexity. It reminds us that survival is not about gadgets. It is about principles. Why forgotten knowledge still matters. You see, history is absolutely full of techniques that kept people alive without electricity, supply chains, or, modern infrastructure. The clay pot heater is one of them. It's quiet, dependable, and rooted in physics rather than convenience. If you care about survival, fieldcraft, and the hard lessons learned long before our time, this knowledge really does deserve to be preserved. If you want more real survival techniques pulled straight from history, make sure you subscribe to Warfront Survival, share this video with others who value practical knowledge, and, stay ready. The past still has a lot to teach those willing to listen.